When U.S. President Donald Trump took the stage at the United Nations General Assembly, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Delegates from nearly every country had gathered in the iconic chamber in New York City, waiting to hear what the American leader, never one to shy away from spectacle, would say. This was Trump's first major international address since reclaiming the Oval Office, and it was clear he intended to make headlines. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. From the moment he began, the speech bore the hallmarks of Trump's style: self-promotion, sweeping claims, bold accusations, and an insistence that his presidency was unlike any the world had ever seen. As the cameras rolled and translators worked feverishly to keep pace, Trump cast himself not merely as a national leader but as a global peacemaker, a man whose actions had, by his telling, reshaped the international order in just a matter of months. The most startling portion of his speech came when he announced that he had successfully ended what he called 7 unendable wars in the span of 7 months. With the kind of flourish that characterized his campaign rallies, Trump listed the conflicts he claimed to have resolved: Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, Congo and Rwanda, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. No president or prime minister, and for that matter, no other country has ever done anything close to that, Trump declared. I did it in just 7 months. It's never happened before. I am very honored to have done it. It's too bad that I had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. The claim was extraordinary. Diplomats present in the chamber exchanged glances of disbelief. The wars and disputes Trump named are not only complex but, in many cases, deeply entrenched in ethnic, religious, territorial, and geopolitical rivalries that stretch back decades, sometimes centuries. Suggesting that one leader had simply ended them was not only implausible but contradicted by the reality on the ground. The India-Pakistan reference drew particular attention. Relations between the two nuclear-armed neighbors have long been among the most volatile in the world. Rooted in the bloody partition of British India in 1947, the conflict has led to multiple wars, countless skirmishes along the line of control in Kashmir, and enduring hostility. For decades, India has maintained that these issues are bilateral and must be resolved without outside interference. Pakistan, on the other hand, has often sought international mediation. Trump's claim, therefore, directly touched a nerve in New Delhi. It was not the first time he had ventured into this sensitive territory. During his earlier presidency, Trump had repeatedly hinted that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had invited him to mediate between India and Pakistan, a claim that India immediately refuted each time. New Delhi has consistently emphasized that Kashmir and other disputes are to be resolved directly between the two nations, without the involvement of third parties, even powerful ones like the United States. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar underscored this point in the Indian Parliament. At no stage in any conversation between India and the United States was there any linkage with trade and what was going on, he said, dismantling Trump's narrative. There was no call between the Prime Minister and President Trump between April 22, when the President called to convey his sympathy, and June 17, when he called from Canada to explain why he couldn't meet. His statement was not just a rebuttal, it was a reiteration of India's long-held foreign policy principle, that sovereignty over its disputes cannot be ceded to outside powers. For India, Trump's words were more than just a diplomatic annoyance. They risked fueling perceptions that New Delhi had accepted external mediation, potentially emboldening Pakistan to push for greater international involvement in the Kashmir issue. That possibility is precisely why Indian officials respond so firmly and so swiftly whenever such claims arise. But Trump's speech did not dwell solely on peace brokering. He quickly shifted focus to the war in Ukraine, which has dominated global politics since Russia's invasion. Here, too, India found itself in the spotlight. Trump accused both India and China of being the primary funders of Russia's war effort, pointing to their continued purchase of Russian oil as evidence. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil, he asserted. He expanded his criticism to NATO allies as well, accusing them of hypocrisy. They're funding the war against themselves, he said with incredulity. Who the hell ever heard of that one? To address the crisis, Trump floated an idea that sounded familiar to those who followed his first term: economic coercion. He announced that the United States was prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs if Russia refused to negotiate peace. Yet he admitted such measures would only work if Europe joined in fully. For those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. This was a return to Trump's trademark use of tariffs as a foreign policy weapon. During his earlier presidency, he had shocked many by raising tariffs on friends and foes alike, including doubling duties on Indian exports to 50% as punishment for New Delhi's continued trade with Russia. His renewed threats signaled that a second Trump administration would once again wield tariffs aggressively, even at the risk of alienating allies. India, however, was not cowed. The Ministry of External Affairs issued a strong response, dismissing Trump's criticism as unjustified and unreasonable. Officials stressed that India's energy purchases from Russia were driven not by politics but by necessity. With more than 1.4 billion citizens to support and an economy that depends heavily on energy imports, India has little choice but to seek the most affordable and reliable sources of oil. Like any major economy, India will take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interests and economic security, the ministry declared. Maya spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal went further, exposing what many in India see as Western hypocrisy. It is revealing that the very nations criticizing India are themselves indulging in trade with Russia, he said. Unlike our case, such trade is not even a vital national compulsion. This critique resonated beyond India's borders. Across much of the global south, leaders share New Delhi's view that Western nations too often hold developing countries to double standards. They argue that Europe and the United States lecture others about sanctions while quietly maintaining their own economic ties with Moscow when convenient. India's stance, therefore, is not an outlier but part of a broader trend of countries asserting their autonomy in a multipolar world order. Trump's UN speech, for all its bluster, revealed as much about his political strategy as it did about global affairs. By claiming to have ended wars and casting himself as a peacemaker, he positioned himself for international prestige, perhaps even the Nobel Peace Prize he openly craves. By attacking India, China, and NATO over their dealings with Russia, he reinforced his image as a truth-teller unafraid of confrontation. Yet in the process, he alienated key partners, complicated sensitive regional dynamics, and provoked backlash from governments unwilling to be scapegoated for geopolitical realities. For India, the episode was both frustrating and illuminating. It underscored the challenges of navigating relations with a United States led by a president prone to exaggeration and unpredictability. It highlighted the need for constant vigilance in protecting its diplomatic positions, especially on matters as sensitive as Kashmir and energy security. And it reaffirmed New Delhi's commitment to pursuing an independent foreign policy, balancing ties with Washington while safeguarding its own national interests. In the end, Trump's speech did not alter the course of the wars he claimed to have ended, nor did it reshape India's policies. But it did once again spotlight the American president's unique blend of bravado and improvisation, a style that continues to unsettle allies, provoke adversaries, and captivate audiences around the world. The United Nations General Assembly hall buzzed with a quiet intensity as leaders, diplomats, and delegates settled into their seats. The marble walls, the iconic green podium, and the emblem of the United Nations behind it carried with them a weight of history. This was the stage where statesmen had debated war and peace, where presidents had announced sweeping doctrines, and where nations large and small had sought to make their case before the world. On this particular day, however, all eyes were on one figure, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. It was his first address to the global community since reclaiming the Oval Office, and expectations were running high. Would he strike a conciliatory tone, or would he lean into the fiery, unpredictable rhetoric that had defined his political persona? The answer became clear almost immediately. From the moment Trump took the podium, his presence filled the hall. He spoke with the authority of someone who relished the stage, someone who believed he was destined not only to lead his country but to reshape the global order. His opening remarks carried little of the cautious diplomacy that usually characterizes UN addresses. Instead, they were bold, sweeping, and self-congratulatory. Within minutes, he launched into a claim that left many in the audience stunned. He said that he, in just 7 months, had achieved what generations of leaders and diplomats had failed to do. He had ended 7 wars. His voice rang out with certainty as he listed them: conflict after conflict, naming regions and rival nations that had been locked in hostility for decades. Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, Congo and Rwanda, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia and Azerbaijan.